Joining me on this special broadcast, I want to welcome first Dr. V.K. Paul, heads up the expert group on vaccine administration. He's the go-to man for rolling out the vaccine project pan-India and is working with the Indian government to figure out how the Indian vaccine project will be rolled out. For an international perspective on this broadcast, I'm joined by a special guest from Brown University in the United States, by one of the world's leading medical experts, Dr. Ashish Jha. So welcome. I want to go across to Dr. Paul first. We now have 3 vaccine candidates that are claiming that their medical tests in phase 3 suggest that they have a 90% plus efficacy rate. When people are seeing these reports, Dr. Paul, the one and only question in everyone's mind is, what does this mean in an Indian context? By when will the first set of vaccines be rolled out in India by you and your teams? Dr. Paul.
Well, Rahul, India is very fortunate that we have a very comprehensive industrial base for vaccine manufacturing, and we also have our R&D set up, very deep R&D setup to support development of vaccine and discovery of vaccine, and also a regulatory setup which is very robust and very respected. These 3 ingredients put together give us a huge hope for a very timely availability of vaccine. I think you covered the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine, but I think India, as you correctly said, we are ahead of the curve. We have at least 5 vaccines today that are undergoing human studies in the country. They are more likely to also be in the pipeline. The serum vaccine, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, is also being stockpiled and developed in the country and is a part of the phase 3 trials. And along with the trials in other countries, time will come when a decision can be taken if it is effective for its implementation and scale up. And this particular company has a huge capacity. It's a very impressive capacity. One of the biggest possibility of piling up the volume, the numbers. We also have ICMR Bharat Biotech vaccine, which has now entered phase 3. Phase 2 is complete. It's moved to phase 3 this week. We have the Cadila vaccine, which is in phase 2. Hopefully, it will move to phase 3 in the next few weeks. And we're very proud also to say that Sputnik 5 vaccine is also in human trials, starting next week at some stage. In parallel, this Russian vaccine is also being tested in phase 3 studies in other 3 or 4 other countries. So that also gives us a possibility. And more recently, Biological E has entered phase 1, phase 2 studies. It will take a little bit longer for this to move further. The point is that no other country perhaps is so fortunate that it has its own indigenous manufacturing capability, and 2 vaccines, the Bharat Biotech and Cadila, are our own vaccine. And one of them, Zydus, is a DNA technology, which is a very new technology. So we are fortunate. Now the point is, when is it likely that we can have a vaccine for use in Indian people? I think if we are taking an optimistic view, it is possible that in the early part of 2021, yes, it will be a reality. However, this should be matched with caution, that we cannot take vaccine success for granted. As of today, despite the enthusiasm and hype, let's remember there is not a single vaccine which is licensed in any part of the country. So we remain hopeful. We are ahead of the curve, and we are making preparations should this opportunity arise in near future to be able to vaccinate a very large priority group for protection against COVID-19 in our country.
Dr. Ashish Jha, there is also the concern over vaccine nationalism. Now, the European Union has finalized a deal for 300 million doses. The US, with a population of 328 million, has ordered 100 million doses with rights to acquire 500 million more. It almost seems as if they're trying to corner the market. Pfizer has said that 80% of the vaccine doses it will produce by the end of next year have already been bought out by countries that represent only 14% of the world population. And in the middle of all of this, there are concerns about how the vaccine project will be rolled out, because a lot of the effort that's happening globally is part of the Gavi Global Alliance for Vaccines. How do you see vaccine nationalism impact the rollout of the Indian vaccine?
Yeah, so thank you for having me on, Rahul. I think this is a real problem. I think vaccine nationalism is hugely problematic. This is a global pandemic, and we really need a global approach. And so the Gavi Alliance that you mentioned, there's a program called COVAX. WHO, Gavi, others have gotten together. America under President Trump has been the one major country that is not participating. I think that will change under a President Biden, where America will start, I think, becoming a member of the global community again. But the problem right now is everybody wants to vaccinate their own population first. Again, I agree with the idea that India is in a good situation, because India has a lot of indigenous manufacturing capacity. In fact, is one of the major manufacturers of vaccines for the world. But right now, none of the two vaccines that are look like they're sort of the furthest ahead, Pfizer and Moderna, I don't believe either of them is going to be manufactured in India anytime super soon. We do need to sort of think about how do we ramp up production, going beyond just the Oxford vaccine to others that are in late stage, so that Indian people can start getting it sooner rather than later. I completely agree, we've got to get it to the high-risk people first, but this is going to be a very big challenge for India. I'm also just worried about countries that don't have the same level of indigenous manufacturing capacity the way India does, about what will they do and how long will it take to get people in those countries vaccinated.